The Perek Chov Gimel Pasuk Aleph Parshas Emor Perek Chov Gimel Pasuk Aleph V'yidaber Hashem Moshe Lemor Daber el Bnei Yisrael V'amarta Aleim Moadei Hashem. Usually Moed means the times. There's designated times, but they're the times of Hashem. Asher tikru osam mikroi kodesh. You should declare them as gatherings, assemblies of holiness. Elehi moadoi. Those are my designated times. Those are my holidays. A moed is usually a chag. We find in Torah refers to the three festivals: Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaShavuos, Chag HaSukkos. The three festivals. It's referred to as Chag. You rejoice. From the word Chagiga. On the festivals, one brings a festival offering. But yet, they're referred to as Moadei. These are the Moadei Hashem. They're the designated times referring to the holidays of Hashem, that you should declare them, you should call them Mikroi Kodesh. Callings of Kodesh mean assemblies of Kodesh. If they're assemblies of Kodesh, Elehi Moadoi. Those are my holidays. Those are my assemblies. So over here, there's a Sefarno. So over here, the Sefarno says, Modi Hashem asher tikro osam mikroi kodesh. Achash diber binyon ha'korbanos ha'makriveim. Says after the Torah speaks about the sacrifices and those who bring them, Shakavonim Hashros Ashchina b'Yisrael. What is the intent and the value and the purpose of the karbonos and those who are qualified to officiate with the sacrifices? The purpose is to bring the Shechina, to bring the divine presence into the Jewish people. Kamro, Olas Tomid, L'Dorasechem, Peschol Moed Lifnei Hashem, the ongoing burnt offering for all generations, the entrance of the communion temple for Hashem, Asher Ivoi L'cho Shama. If there I will meet you. I will meet you due to that. Diber b'moadim asher b'shvisosam. Now we speak about the holidays. Asher b'shvisosam yichavin lishbos ma'aseh hejit. What is the innate value of the holidays? That you should refrain from work, which is ma'aseh hejit, which is mundane activity, or activity which relates to the physical, to the human being. B'ktsosam legamri, regarding some of the fixed holidays or designated times of holiness, it's total removal from any physical creative activity. Kinyan b'Shabbos Yom Kippurim, Shabbos Yom Kippur, even food-related activities are not permitted. V'lasek b'kulon b'Torah v'Iskei Kodesh, and what you should engage on these days, you should engage in Torah and involvements of Kedusha, which are mitzvahs. Ka'omro, sheish yom tavot, as it says in Torah, 6 days you work. Yom hashvi Shabbos l'Hashem Elokecha. The seventh day is the time of refrain. And what do you do with that day? L'Hashem Elokecha. The day should be designated for Hashem Elokecha. Shetishbos b'mlachcho, you should cease doing your work. V'yu'iskecha kula Hashem Elokecha, and your engagement should be fully for Hashem Elokecha. However, some of the holidays or the days of kedusha, sanctity, You only have to refrain from creative activity, which is called avoda, work, meaning which is not related to food related. Kimoshu in bishar hamoadim v'akavona behem. What is the intent of holidays outside of Shabbos and Yom Tiv? Shim simchas hayom sheyismach Yisrael ba'osav, through the rejoicing of the day, which the Jewish people rejoice ba'osav, with their maker. Some of the activities should be engagements of Kedusha. Kamram Zal, Yom Tov. How do we celebrate the Yom Tov? Chatzi Lashem, v'chatzi lachem. The day is designated for God and also for ourselves, meaning we partake of the day in a physical way. Hishra Shechina al Yisrael b'li sofek. And if we abide and we utilize the days as prescribed by Hashem, there is no question, Tisha Shechina al Yisrael b'li sofek, without a question. The Shechina, if we assume this type of profile of behavior, there is no question the Shechina will dwell in our midst. Ka'amro, Elokim nitzav b'hazkel. Elokim stands among the congregation of Kale. Omar Osa Modim Shetikru Osa Mikrei Kodesh. Those are the holidays. If you invest the days as prescribed by Hashem, there's the Kedusha aspect. Yom Kippur and Shabbos is Kul Hashem, is all only for God. Even food-related activities are not permitted. And the holidays, the Moadim, it's Chetzi Lashem, Chetzi Lochem. It's partially for Hashem and partially for ourselves. Those days are called callings of Kedusha. Pirush Asifos Am Iske Kodesh. That's called the assembly of the people for engagement in Kedusha. Ki Asifos Ha'om Tikri Mikro. The call, when he says, when you assemble the people, that's called the callings. You call the people to assemble. Klo Chodesh V'Shabbos Kori Mikro. V'chein al Mochon Hartzion V'Mikro. Cites the pasuk. Elahim Odoi. God says, those are the holidays. Those are the holidays which I have an interest in. Omnam is very important. He says, however, but if it doesn't have this aspect of Kedusha, it's purely for immersing yourself in the physicality, in the celebration of the material. Avol yu bikrei chol. If it's only callings which have no relevance to sanctity, and it's only to engage in the value of the physical life and the pleasures of mankind, those are not my holidays. If it doesn't have the element of Kedusha, Hashem says, those are not my holidays. Avol yubo adeichem sono nafshi, quotes the Navi. Shaya Novi says, those holidays, those gatherings, those assemblies, are Sona Nafshi. Those are the holidays that I despise, that I don't want to be associated with. I'll give you an example. The Maral and the Ramchal write, what is the meaning of Moadim? We find that term, although we know Moed means times, but Moed also means a time of meeting. For instance, we know the Shechina, when it time of the Bishkan or the Beis Hamikdash, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, "Ivoid l'cho mi bein mishnei bein akruvim." I will meet you from between the two cherubs. Ivoid l'cho, meaning the Shechina came down from heaven and passed between the cherubs on top of the ark, on top of the Aron. Ivoid l'cho mi bein shnei akruvim. That's ivoid. So what's a moed? So the Maral explains, and the Ramchal, that when we celebrate our holidays, our Yom Tovim, they're not just commemorative, to commemorate something of the past, redemption from Egypt, receiving the Torah at Sinai, or our trek in the desert, we were engulfed with the clouds of glory, but rather, every year at that particular day or days, what happened at that particular time in history repeats itself identically as it was at that time. The energies which Hashem released to bring about those events, everything repeats itself. It's a time of meeting. As Hashem engaged with us at that moment, every year on those days, Hashem engages with us. It's the identical reenactment of that particular moment, and we are beneficiaries of that relationship. So what is the Moed? Moed is a time of meeting where we meet, and God is intimate with the Jewish people as he was at those particular moments in history. So if the setting, this is the Ramchal and this is the Maral, so if the setting is appropriate, it's a setting of Kedusha, Shabbos and Yom Tif, Shabbos and Yom Kippur, which are Kul Hashem, which we're not permitted to engage in any creative activity, even for food-related reasons. That setting is appropriate for that level of relationship. Because God says, on Yom Kippur, Shabbos Shabboson, not only is work not permitted, unrelated to food activity, but even food-related activities are not permitted. Yom Tovim, the festivals, work activities are not permitted, but food-related activities are permitted. So if you meet, you create this setting, that's an appropriate setting for our meeting. Could you imagine? You invite a Jew, a holy rabbi, to your home for a holiday, and the food you serve is not kosher, and the music which is being played represents everything which is the antithesis of Kedusha. And the discussion has no relevance to what the day is all about. Is this an appropriate setting for the guest that's coming to your home? So if Yom Tov is a time of Mikroi Kodesh, it's assemblies of Kedusha because God's going to be intimate with us. What is the proper environment and setting for that Kedusha, for God's presence to be there? So Hashem says, if the Mikroi Kodesh, if they're callings of Kedusha, it's Lashem, Chatzi Lochem, Chatzi Loshem. It's infused with my presence and represents my presence, Elohim Odoi. That's my kind of setting for me to meet you. But otherwise, he cites Yeshaya Novi, if it's only for you and it's purely physical indulgence and it's lacking in the Kedusha component, you moadechem sona nafshi. Hashem says, I despise those particular holidays. Those holidays are not my holidays. It's not my thing. It has to be appropriate. And who sets the criteria? What's appropriate? Hashem sets the criteria. Shabbos is Kul Hashem. Yom Tiv is Chatzi Lochem, Chatzi Hashem. I always mention him, Rameir Simcha of Dvinsk, that Shabbos food-related activities are not permitted. So what does it indicate? That indicates, as the Torah says, Shabbos L'Hashem, the focus is Bein Od Lamokom. We have to perfect and focus on a relationship with God. Yom Tiv, food-related activities are permitted. You're permitted to cook, to bake. You're permitted to transport from domain to domain. Because there the focus is Bein Od L'Chavero. We have to perfect our relationships between man and fellow, invite people, fresh food, we go out, we carry, we don't have the same level of restrictions. But it's within which context? It's within the context of Chatzi Lochem, Chatzi Hashem. The value of the Bein Od L'Chavero is that's just a social setting. It's to solidify, we speak about Achdus, the unity of Klal Yisrael, the whole concept of V'ahavta L'Orecha Kamocha, that we're committed to one another. We recognize, as we said in the name of, we once studied the Toma Dvorah, why is there a mitzvah of V'ahavta L'Orecha Kamocha? That a Jew has an obligation to love his fellow Jew as he loves himself? Because every Jewish soul is part of a network which is called the Jewish people. And each of us are a spoke in the wheel, a cog in the wheel, a component of this network called the Jewish people. As a result of that, each one of us, whatever we do, positive, it's an infusion in the whole totality of the Jewish people. So when we speak about you love your fellows, you love yourself, when you do for your fellow, you're doing for yourself. Because if he's a beneficiary of your action, in actuality, you're a beneficiary. Because he's part of your entity, because we're all interconnected and we all complement one another. Give you an example. We speak about Tayag Mitzvos, the 248 positive commandments. Many of those commandments have no relevance to every Jew, or the negative commandments. We just read a Kohen has negative commandments. He's not permitted to contaminate himself. He's not permitted to marry certain types of women. Those restrictions have no relevance to any other Jew, only the Kohen. So 365 negative commandments have no relevance to every Jew, or the Kohen Gadol, or the many other things. So how does every Jew have relevance to the Tayag Mitzvos? The answer is because every Jew, being interconnected with one another, as being one entity called the Jewish people, each of us are beneficiaries when we do something positive. It's an infusion in the system of that special level of spirituality. When the Kohen officiates, when he does the avoda, when the Jew goes and buries the dead, each of us are complementing one another. And the negative commandment, the Kohen, when he violates, he desecrates his priesthood, his kuna. He's detracting from the entity called the Jewish people. So therefore, every one of us have relevance to every one of the mitzvos. So therefore, the Ramak, Ramoshe Kodevi, writes in Torah Dvorah, that is the concept of V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, because each one of us are interconnected with the other. So when you do for your fellow, you're doing for yourself, because you ultimately are the beneficiary of doing for the other person. That's the Ramak. So the idea of Yom Tiv, that we have food-related activities are permitted, and not only permitted, you're obligated to celebrate the holiday, V'samachta b'chagecha, ein tzricha ela basa v'yayin, that you rejoice with the sacrificial meat of the chagiga, and wine, the libation, so on and so forth. This is all, and we do this in unity. Klal Yisrael goes to Shalayim to visit the sanctuary and to be unified with God. This is itself is an infusion and uplifting of the totality of the Jewish people.